here with I want to say the very prominent Mr. George Berry.
The incomparable.
And I'm just excited meeting him for the first time, and he's quite personable, and I'm excited to hear about all the things he wish he knew before he went into business. But just to share a little bit about what George does. George, just share about what you do being in the transportation industry. I'm impressed that you're connected with a company. I know that you took it over. There's been in existence since 1976. So tell us about what you do and the benefit of connecting with a franchise.
Right. So essentially, well, thank you for having me on first and foremost, and praise God.
Praise God.
So essentially, FTBT Transport is a subsidiary of Pioneer Transport. So as FTBT Transport, what we do is we serve as a dispatching hub, so to speak, for independent contractors, truck drivers. And my staff basically dispatches them import and export containerized loads to haul to various warehouses throughout our region. So that's what we do in a nutshell. We handle all the administrative paperwork, and we ensure our drivers are settled every week, and we provide as a support network for them. So that's generally what we do in terms of the operation of the business of FTBT Transport.
Now, are there many Black-owned businesses in your field? Black-run, minority-owned?
It's not very many. It seems to be hard to. I think more minorities are into the driving aspect of it and not so much of the running of the operation. I took on this feat because I wanted a location, a business that, you know, other minority truckers could feel more secure in a sense. They feel that there's integrity and folks that look like them, you know, represented behind the desk as a terminal manager. So that's why I took on this position, started this business.
Excellent. And before we get into the things you didn't know, how are you helping to engage minorities or mentor minorities into what you do?
Well, I started an organization back in 2014 called For Truckers by Truckers, and with that organization, that pretty much it's advocacy for the port drivers in Hampton Roads. And through that organization, I've just been able to be more, I guess you could say, active, or being able to communicate more with other minority truck drivers, and you know, just talk to them more about what we do and what we're there to, you know, how we can benefit their needs.
If anyone is interested, how would they contact you? How do they contact you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, George Berry. You can go to For Truckers by Truckers on a Facebook page, and you can connect with me there. And you know, Pioneer Transport VA on IG. So those are some of the ways that you can contact me, reach out to me.
Now, I share with you, I'm on the other end of this trucking, having retired from the United States Postal Service after 35 and a half years. And I've always been impressed with those who, first of all, the drivers who drive those huge trucks and able to keep their commercial license. And so I do understand palletization, but there's something unique about the fact that you can carry a palletized load. So can you share that?
Right. So generally most of the loads we carry are import and export. So they come in on those big vessels. If you're familiar with what the news in terms of what happened last week, there was a large cargo vessel that got lodged in the Suez Canal, and they had it could carry up to 20,000 containers on one vessel, and we're talking 40-foot, containers. Those loads are already loaded in, say different countries, China being one of our main importers. And it comes already in containerized, in a container, and they're offloaded by the docks workers. at the various facilities that we deliver to. So we don't necessarily load any of the freight ourselves. The truck drivers are just there to, move the freight in transit.
All righty. Well, let's get into your wisdom here. Tell us about some of the things you wish you knew before you went in business.
Great. So I have a few notes here jotted down, some of the experiences I've been through, and hopefully it can help any of you all out there that's listening, considering starting a business or just on just at that starting line and want to help get over it. So hopefully this information I provide for you will be helpful in the future. So number one, I think it's important that you pick your passion and just not quick money. If you're going into business just thinking, hey, I'm gonna make lots of money and I'm gonna jump out or whatever the case may be, that this may not be for you. So pick your passion, find what you're interested in. You don't want your job or your business to feel like a job. You want to feel like it's somewhere you enjoy going to, and that it's something that you've always wanted. You know that there's a need for it, and it will make your business a lot more enjoyable. So I always say, I'm not going to work, I'm going to the office. Because if you're going to work, then you're the employee. So you should be in a place where you're managing your employees and running your business. So start with picking your passion first. Next, do your proper research to avoid oversaturation or over-indexed industries. Try to find something that, is not, when I say oversaturated, I mean there's too many of them. There may be too many barbershops. There may be too many salons, depending, not saying that you can't select those industries, but just see, is there too many in the market that you're in now? Is it over-indexed? Is it too many car washes out here and you want to start a car wash? See if you can find something a little more unique that, folks will say, well, that's the only place in town that you can get it. So look at doing something of that nature. In terms of my industry, it's like, how can we be, what type of services can we specialize in trucking? Are we carrying overweight? Are we carrying hazmat? Are we carrying flatbed loads? Just find a way that you can stand out from all the other businesses or companies in your area. So do your proper market research for that. Next, I would say how simple it can be if you invest the time to learn how to establish your own entity. So instead of perhaps hiring a CPA or attorney, nothing wrong with those folks out there, but see if you can, start, get your LLC or S corp. Find ways that you can do that on your own and not necessarily have to pay somebody else to do them. You can get your tax ID, your city business license, your state certified, get state certified, your Duns and Bradstreet number, and get SWAM certified. All those different things that I just mentioned, you can practically do on your own. So you don't necessarily have to go through, those different professionals to get what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So look at doing it yourself. Next, I would say partnership may have many pitfalls, especially when it comes with relationship, friends, and business. Friends and family. Sometimes a dissolution, which is basically breaking up the partnership, it can feel like a divorce. How do I know? I've been there and I've done that. So try to find a way that, as you have in a partnership, just decide that's really the route you want to go in. Really have those heart-to-heart conversations with whoever you want to do business with. Are you trying to do it with a girlfriend or a boyfriend? That can sometimes go south, and sometimes that can cause your business to go in that same direction. Friends, it can work, but if it doesn't work out, not only do you lose a business partner, but you can lose a friendship too.
Yes, and that can be emotionally draining, and a distraction when you get involved with those who you're friends with. But of course, we're talking about keeping everything in writing so that we understand what we agreed to.
I agree. And family, you want to go into business with your family, that could cause turmoil if it doesn't work out. So you have to have those tough conversations ahead of time to say, I was one of those folks that didn't think it would ever happen. Nah, he's good. He's so mellow, and when that day came and he was like, no, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And we had to go through that whole dissolution process. It was tough because I was feeling like I was really losing a partner there, a friend. And it's, you're dividing things, you're deciding if you really want to take on that entire operation on your own. And that was definitely a challenge, to say the least. But in hindsight, I'm glad I made that decision, because I almost just walked away as well, because I was nervous. I was like, man, can I do all this on my own? I'm losing my partner. So just things to think about. Next, I would say scale up slowly. The earth wasn't built in a day. So take your time to build up. You don't have to say, for my industry in particular, you don't have to say, I'm going to go out there and buy 10 trucks so I can have 10 trucks. Now your challenge is finding 10 drivers, and you can't go out and purchase them. You have to be able to find qualified drivers that want to stick around, for a long time to come. So sometimes just going out there and buying all this equipment and you don't have the resources to put them in, then that could be problematic for you. So I would say try to scale your business as slow as you can, and you'll get there. You may not be a millionaire the first year, but keep working towards it, and hopefully that day will come for you. Build your network by joining the industry organization or committee. The one I joined was the Tidewater Motor Truck Association. We were talking about that before the meeting started. And just to get involved and knowing what's happening in my industries, who are the movers and shakers, who are the folks that you can network with, possibly get you more freight or get you more business. It's important to get connected. If you're a teachers organization, get with teachers organization. I don't know, if there's a barbershop organization, get with those folks. Just try to get plugged in. And a great resource, give a shameless plug, is Black Brand, where you can find a plethora of different business owners and different fields that can be definitely helpful. I don't know if it's a good time to start answering the questions. I have a few more, or do you want to just jump in? You let me know.
Oh no, I'll just go ahead and ask you: Is the industry still thriving what you're in, and is this a good time to start a trucking business?
I kind of have a bias with that. I might not be the right person to ask for that, because I'm sort of pessimistic in our industry right now. I feel that we're almost in a dying industry, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons I think young people aren't as interested in trucking as they maybe once were. There were young people getting into the industry. First, you have to be 21 to have a CDL. So you can't just, become a truck driver right out of high school. There are some legislation that they're trying to change that to maybe 18, but nevertheless, so I don't know how that would look, but an 18-year-old behind an 18-wheeler, I'm not sure. But we do need more truckers in our industry. I think that race not race, how can I say this? Some of the requirements in terms of criminal background have to be met in order to be a truck driver. And that can weigh heavily on, how many qualified drivers you have out here, especially when the majority of them are minorities.
And a good driver's license overall. I used to teach driving school. And
right.
Some of them would come in and say,
driving record, right? That's
yes,
another factor. If you don't have a good driving record, and with my agency, you have to have at least 2 years of previous experience. So another thing is the rates. I don't think the rates have been up to par in our industry, because of we have freight brokers who really like to keep the freight rates low. It's just like you buying an airline ticket. You buy an airline ticket saying $100 and $200. The airlines ain't gonna be able to thrive off of that. That's why there's been so much consolidation over the years. It's just because airlines have tried to keep them fares low, even though diesel or fuel, jet fuel prices are going higher, parts are going higher, maintenance costs is going higher, wages are going higher, but yet we're still trying to only pay that $100, $200 airline ticket. It's the same thing in my industry, where they're just, the brokers are trying to keep it at the best rate. In other words, it's the lowest rate for you to haul their freight. And drivers are complaining, you know, we can't make, they can't sustain their business on low rates. And if you go above a threshold, then you may not get the freight opportunity at all. So it's really a balancing act of keeping your drivers happy and keeping your customers happy. So to say I'm just a little cynical in terms of the industry, but I think there's a lot of folks that are doing other things in terms of starting up autonomous trucks, and those are the self-driving trucks, and they are already testing those on the road, because I think they know something. They know that they're not going to be able to keep, you know, this industry going if something is not done in terms of getting more qualified drivers, or find a way that the trucks are driving themselves. So.
You know, that reminds me of our discussion prior to going live, where you shared if there is a, well, you said it in the interview too, where if there is a saturation, where can you be unique? I mean, I know the costs have to be low. I think about the Walmarts, you know, the Walmarts of the trucking industry, so they can drive the costs lower. But what is George doing that's unique? I mean, are you guaranteeing on time, to, you know, being on time, or the window, whatever it is to give you that competitive edge? Because people will pay for service.
Right.
Now, I've noticed that people will pay for service. So everyone, our competitive edge as small businesses can be our service. So I have another question for you. How do you navigate the staffing aspect of your business?
How do I navigate it? In terms of hiring, or
And, you know, just
how
how,
do I add
yeah, as
more
far as
truckers
keeping
on?
up, do you have full-time? Are they, you know, how do you work with the salaries, especially during this time, like you said, with business is slow?
Gotcha. So, you know, they had this big push for the $15 an hour minimum wage. And I've really, as a small business, it is difficult to often, you know, offer employees that, but you got to realize that is a sacrifice. In order to get the skilled workers that you need, the competent workers in your office, or you know, serving your business, you have to be able to pay, you know, reasonable wages. And I have 2 full-time employees. One is out on medical leave right now, so I had started a new one. She just started training about almost 2 weeks ago, but she's picked up really quick. And I specifically went after uh, individuals or candidates that have had prior trucking experience. I have done the try to train them, you know, grassroots green right off the street, you know, and that is not all that didn't serve me as well as finding someone specifically, you know, that has experience in my industry. Because folks sometimes hear dispatches like, oh, I could do that, I could do that. But if you've never done it before, know the terminology, because it is a whole new language you have to learn. It's just like, I can't walk into a medical building and say I want to be a medical assistant. I have to know, you know, that those acronyms and terminology and so on and so forth. So finding folks that have experience in the industry was critical to is critical to the success of my business overall. So
What I admire about entrepreneurs, especially running an operation like yourself, we can be in it. Like you may have been a truck driver and you start the truck driving business, but you don't know the financial side of it, or you don't know the warehouse management side of it. So I admire those CEOs. Of course, they have the skill sets to manage, but you want to know something about that department, so that you know you're not getting, I would say, cheated. You know, even in where I work, right? You know, we had contractors that did all this computer work.
right.
the VP didn't know. The VP had to rely on the IT executive to know, because you don't want somebody charging you for hours more than is required. So what skill set is required in order to be a good boss, in your opinion?
Well, that's actually pretty excellent that you mentioned that. I started out as a truck driver, and I still have my truck to this day, and I'll probably jump in my truck a little later on today to help out where I can. For me, it is important that you know all the different aspects of the business. So, me having 10 years prior experience as a trucker, me getting behind the desk now and doing the dispatching just kind of just fell in line. It was a little, there was some learning curves there, definitely learning how to price your services, and that can happen in any industry, quite honestly, is knowing how much your product or your services are worth. And I'd say the trick to that is just finding out from other, that market, just going out to different businesses and finding out, throwing those feelers out there to find out, how much the services or the, how much you should be charging for your goods or whatever the case may be. So it was important that I can tell, candidates who want to drive for my agency that I've been a trucker and I still am a trucker. So knowing that I come from that background is often very helpful.
I know that we probably have some more questions coming in. Okay, what realistic viewpoint do business owners need? Now, during the pandemic, you experienced a shift in your role that required more of yourself. You even said, which I think is admirable, that you'll jump in the truck yourself and help in. So be transparent about it and help us understand that it isn't always a cakewalk. Or was it a cakewalk for you? Was it a cakewalk?
I can't necessarily say that. I think every day is a unique challenge in my business and perhaps in other folks' business. But every day it's like, what is new today? That's what keeps the vibe and the energy going. It's like, man, it's gonna be something new today. And I like to be a problem solver. I like to see what the issue is and try to do some critical thinking and how it can be resolved and how we can move forward. So I wanted to answer this question: what realistic viewpoint do business owners need? It's definitely, I guess, a viewpoint of uh, of 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 succeeding. How do I get to the end goal? How do I resolve this issue as we were just talking about? So that would be the answer to that question. And I think, Blair, there's another question: do you cover your drivers with a legal service? The drivers have options. They're mostly independent contractors, so they're not my employees. The only employees I have are inside the office as the dispatchers, but they can always find Legal Shield and other legal services that they desire to have. So
we have some questions from Facebook. Did you evaluate your insurance options for yourself? Did you evaluate them for yourself or your business beforehand?
I spoke with an insurance company, and they evaluated, what my needs were, and that's how we decided to go from there. And in terms of insurance, what I did offer my employees is Aflac. So we've had representatives come in and speak with them about the various options, and I provided a benefit for them. But I don't have an insurance in terms of health and vision. There's an option that they can use from our corporate office, but I don't offer one myself. But in terms of general cargo insurance, we do that through our corporate office. I'm really not involved in that. And the general liability within my office, I am covered through that. So.
Well, that's one of the benefits of having a corporate office, right? That you have someone that can handle some of those administrative aspects.
Indeed.
What do you suggest for someone who has recently finished trucking school, George? They're top of the class and they're looking to drive. Are you looking to hire any more drivers?
So as I was speaking to earlier, I'm not able to hire truckers who are right out of school, but a great benefit for drivers. Luckily, I was able to be given a break when I first got out of trucking school, and I went to a company called D.D. Jones, which was local. So there are a few companies that are around that will allow, will permit new truckers coming in to the business to start locally. But I think another great direction is maybe a little OTR, that stands for over the road, meaning they would go with one of the upper, upper echelon companies like a Warner or a Swift. They can oftentimes take on new drivers, and drivers could get their experience through that way. So by the time they're ready to come back after, say, a year, 2 years, they'll be very well familiar with the road and its challenges.
How long should one wait to try to obtain their own truck to drive? So is it about the dispatch connection to keep a driver, meaning their husband on the road?
So let me see. Let me go back down that question. That was I I waited a year and a half. What I wanted, I started off as a company driver. I wanted to get familiar with being in the truck and being and watching other owner operators and how they conducted their business, and the freight that they chose, and how were they able to understand their value, and what they were bringing forward. So I would say, I'd take at least a year to maybe, you know, decide, make that decision, a year to 2 years, and then I would go after maybe buying a truck.
I enjoy, while the questions are still coming in, I enjoyed what you mentioned earlier about your passion. We know that's so very important. The old saying is do what you would do for free,
Yeah,
because there has to be intangible benefits, because
indeed.
when things, and we know they're going to go wrong, when they go
Mhm.
wrong, when we're going through a hurdle, we
Right.
won't be so quick to retreat, because
Right.
this is our passion. This is what
Hmm.
we enjoy. It's what we would do for free. And sometimes it is what we do for free, meaning you give away something to gain that customer. We call it a discounted rate, or an intro rate.
Right.
I do this for free just to be connected with you. So have you done that? Have you worked with other businesses? I want to be connected with you so that I
Right.
can say you are a client.
Right. And yeah, that is the case. And depending if I'm doing a substantial amount of business with you, I will cut a broker a little bit of slack on a certain rates. And but I still have to have it where it's still I can still appetize the driver who has to deliver that load. It still has to be something that they want to do, for that rate. So I had to be very careful. And sometimes it's just a nickel or a dime here or there. So, but sometimes it's like, oh, they gave me a discount, or they knocked a little bit of storage off of my rate, or whatever the case may be. And so that can be a helpful tool along the way. I'm trying to attract more drivers right now, so I have started. I created an initiative for $1,000 sign-on bonus for any drivers who want to drive for my trucking agency.
We have to put that out there.
Yeah, the same as plug, little shame.
And Blair will put it out there for you.
Oh yeah, she will. I appreciate her so much. Yeah, so I had a few more things I want to wrap up on the what things I
Okay.
knew, and then we can get back to another question. Is that okay?
Okay, sounds great. Go ahead.
Okay, just a couple more. So, some other things I want to tell folks is to find competent staff, um, preferably someone that has experience already in the field of your business. Newbies could take a lot of time to groom. If you are the true definition of a boss, uh, when you are a boss, my phone just okay. Um, when you're a boss over someone. And so you being calling yourself a boss and you're doing all the work, I don't really consider that individual boss. So you have to get to a place where you have competent staff on, and you can leave your business and they will run your business as if you were still there. That can be challenging, but it is very possible to do. So keep that in mind as you begin to start your business and who you want to hire and bring on. Last but not least, I would say is my greatest advice I ever received from another business owner was to run your business or your business will run you. So I want to end my little list of items with that last statement because it's very important that you have to keep control over what you have going on. If you're absent and when you come back in, it's in chaos or disarray, is because you did not, keep an eye on your business or stay informed of what was happening. So I would always say, try to, stay plugged in what's going on in your business, even if you hire some folks. So you can always jump in there in case something happens where they're unable to work or whatever. You can jump right in that seat and be able to keep everything flowing. I had to sort of learn my business all over again. For the past year, I sort of stepped back. I was kind of chilling at home, sleeping in, just getting a briefing every day. But as things were falling apart at my business, I had to get back in there, and I'm glad I did at the time I did, and just learning how to do the dispatcher's work, from the bottom up, so that we could sustain ourselves. So that was important.
How are you an advocate? Are you an advocate, a voice for what you do? Or I don't know. And it doesn't have to be just people going into the trucking industry. It could be something for the truckers. I mean, I've seen on the news how truckers during COVID couldn't even use a bathroom, but however you want to share, how are you an advocate for what you do?
Right. So for me to be able to be an advocate, I was actually asked to be on one of the Port of Virginia's board for motor carriers. And sitting on that board the last 3 years or so, I'm able to be that conduit for port drivers. If they have any grievances that they need to bring to the Port of Virginia, um, I'm that mouthpiece for them. I serve as that so that I can maybe bring about changes that they need to see happen on the marine terminals and throughout this industry. So that's how I've been able to be a voice, and also just using social media as a platform. Our Facebook page for truckers by truckers, has over 3,000 folks up there that stay engaged quite frequently, with what's happening in the industry. So we also created a text notification service to keep drivers plugged in and what's going on in the business and industry, because everybody doesn't. We as truckers, they don't all meet in one central location to clock in. Everybody's in their separate trucks and everybody's going down the road and doing their thing. So I think it's important that we keep, for my industry, the drivers plugged in and them having feeling that they have someone to stand up in their corner.
How did going in business create new opportunities for you? I mean, they're probably unforeseen opportunities. Can you think of any that you're like, wow, I didn't know that this door will open for me?
Hmm. Well, I think it's for me. I'm just in a place of where I want to scale my business more, quite frankly, and that is challenging just because there's a lot of zoning laws, and that's another thing business owners have to keep in mind as the zoning laws. So just because you want to start a business in a particular place doesn't mean that you'll be granted that if the zoning doesn't permit it. So with trucking, it's the same way. You can't. There's certain ordinances in the various cities that dictate where a trucking company can actually, start, have their business rooted, and that has been a big challenge in our area. For this to be a large port town, it's not the most friendly when it comes to trucking companies and them having locations and where they can put their business. So to be able to scale my business is definitely one of the directions I'm trying to take it in. I'm not sure if that really answered your question.
No, it answered it because that was your response. It's fine. Now, before I ask the next question, I do have a comment. I used to teach driving school. I did it part-time. So
Okay.
it's imperative that I would have students in there with their commercial A license, and they say
Okay.
they would be in jeopardy of losing it. So they had to come to driving school. So it's imperative that we understand that just from getting a bad, I guess, infraction, you may lose your commercial, you may use your commercial license. So how did you fund your business? What was the process?
So funding my business, it was more of just a startup cost per se. And actually I was still driving for another company while we were trying to scale up the
That's
car
smart.
operations we have now. Yes. So we would take revenue from that, and me and my business partner would split any of the costs, the office rent or whatever the case may be, at a 50-50 rate. And we would, as as our business began to grow, I drove and drove less for the other company. So that I was like, hey, look, I'm driving for my other company, and that was, those were certain programs called trip leasing at that time that we were able to do. It's not a lot of trip leasing opportunities around anymore because a lot of companies know that there's a lot of insurance issues, and then we have electronic logs now, so it's made it a little more complicated to do it in that method. But that's how I was able to grow my business at that time.
We have a question from an attendee, and I think this is very interesting, and it's good that managers know how to handle conflict. So as a small business owner, you have employees. How do you handle internal employee conflicts?
So, and I definitely have had those. Sometimes you have to get to a point where somebody's got to go. It can be that. But before you get to that drastic step, it's you know, the constant, I would have constant talks with both of the individuals, and then sometime I would have them separately. Um, I would say, hey, look, I take them outside and just have a conversation with them, and then, say we really need to, resolve this and we need to move forward. So that would be, I think sometimes those are the easiest way of doing things. Sometimes just take them out to lunch and just, maybe
Oh,
they
you're a
can
good
find
boss.
things that are in common. Yeah, we gotta do things like that time to time. But I think that is just the most adult way you could kind of go about it, is like, look, how do we move forward? We need to do this. Or like, I would let an employee stay, while other employees be like, look, I can't work with this individual. Now I'm starting wondering, was it that employee the whole time? So you just have to work that situation just like family sometimes, because that's what they sort of become when you spending so many hours a day with them. Like, come on now, don't do cousin Junebug like that. Work it out amongst each other and try to resolve whatever the conflict is. And so,
When you said that sometimes you have to let them go, Blair had a chat. Speak, George, speak. You do have to let them go. But I can imagine, especially if you're a people person, that is a very difficult thing to do, because it's people need income.
right.
And
They-
maybe they dug their own grave, but
yeah,
when it's not when someone's stealing, you don't have to, you're not gonna lose sleep over that.
right.
But when it comes to them really trying and just not being able to get it, I think about the emotional toll,
Mhm.
on managers or owners when they have to let someone go, knowing that they're trying their best, but they're just not cutting it.
Mm. So I see they're speaking about my staffing issues. So I'm gonna
Yes,
speak
yes,
a little
yes.
bit on that, why it was challenging for me, and maybe somebody else out there have this background and has found it challenging. But I came from a military background. I served in the Army for 8 years. So being that I got to a level of sergeant and I was a squad leader and I had soldiers underneath me. And if anybody out there has ever been in the military, they know that you can't just necessarily fire your soldiers that, are underneath you. And I sort of took that mentality into my civilian business, because I had an employee that, just wasn't the the most competent. And I just felt like, and how do I try to ship this, how do I get this person into shape? I don't want to fire them, because I've invested a lot of time in training them and getting them, up to speed in this industry. And I wanted to keep them around. And I felt like maybe I could work at correcting all their deficiencies and without firing them. And that had became such a challenging, task for me, is how would I keep this individual on? And folks be like, man, you need to get rid of them, and I'm like, man, I just don't know how to really fire someone. And so I think it has to get to that point where you're like, okay, look, you're watching your revenue go down and you're seeing all your losses, that you need to say, look, all right, it's time for me to do something else in this situation. So I'm sort of revamping my business as we speak, bringing in new talent, so to speak. And I feel a lot more confident now. And it feels so good that I made those choices. So.
As a point of clarity for the effervescent, loving, and very friendly Blair, she didn't say speak George because she's an advocate of having people fired. She just knows you've been in the trenches with staffing. So I want to make sure everybody out here in Facebook land knows that, and those who are attending with us, because we know Blair is a sweetie. But I also know that, that staffing, as you mentioned, can be a problem. Me, having retired from the U.S. Postal Service with unions, I mean, you just can't fire. So, you're dealing with conflict with the union. You may want to fire them, but you have to work with the union. And it's not that the union is an advocate for those who don't do their work. They're just an advocate for those who pay their dues. They're trying to help them to stay. So that can be another challenge if you're working with a union, or if you're working with someone who is, everybody has it, every company has it, that leader. It's not a union, but that leader, that person that everybody, most of the employees look up to. Mm-hmm. So you have to get a buy-in from that leader, because that leader is the influencer, so to speak. And we may not want to deal with it, but we have to deal with it, because that is the person that the people listen to, just like the newbies when they come in. Sometimes we don't want them exposed to the negatives, right? We want to put them with someone who's going to train them, who's going to give them, I would say, a balanced perspective of the company. Now, I know that for drivers, I don't know if this is the case for your company, they have allowed them to have, I guess because long distance drivers, allow them to have someone in the truck with them. Mm-hmm. It might be a pet, it might be a spouse, or whomever. So is that the case for you? I don't know. Tell us about, I don't know if you have long distance drivers.
Well, our drivers are mostly regional, so they probably go out 200 to 300 miles and then come back. So typically they don't sleep in the truck. It's very rare that happens. But there are drivers who want to, sometimes, really that should be an additional rider on insurance if you have an additional person in your vehicle when you go to across the country, or even just riding in your truck as a whole. So it depends on the terminal that you drive for. Mine particularly, you really shouldn't have an additional driver in there, because really this is your job. How many people are able to bring their spouse to their job with them every day?
Good point.
Right. So the pet's not a big issue, but bringing an additional human. So if you get in an accident, or God forbid something like that happen, and you have somebody else that's in your truck with you really kind of unauthorized, then that could create, problems along the way. So that's sort of a gray area. And so it depends on the trucking company.
And everyone, we still have time, of course, for a few more questions. I want to continue, George, with the HR aspect. How are you, I mean, as far as, does your corporate office handle that too, as far as signing up for insurance or their health insurance, so you don't have to deal with those aspects, as far as, even with those who are in the reserves, being able to honor them going on reserve duty, you don't deal with that part of it?
Right. So no, mostly my HR department, corporate office would deal with things of that nature. So that's the benefit of me being sort of like a franchisee, that those things are handled through them. We do have insurance plans that we can deduct the employees from. And the truckers are sort of on their own. That's why they're the independent contractor. They're not my employees. So any insurance that they need to have or whatever, that's really what they seek out themselves. So
Okay, so with independent contractors, you still have your standards, so you still have to offer remedial training, right? Refresher training to make sure I don't know if you do that or not, as far as what they have to do when they dock, how they safety measures. You don't have to do that per OSHA. Now this is my question.
no, not a problem at all. No, the drivers are required to recertify when, for their driver's license. Themselves. In terms of safety, we try to offer a safety refresher course every year to them. But we pretty much allow them to operate because they're basically operating a business as well. So they're there to do what they have to do to keep their business, in compliance. Excuse me, whether that's drug and alcohol testing that's required and anything else in terms of their TWIC badge to be able to get on the port. They have to renew their credentials for that. So there are little instances in where the drivers have to maintain their business.
One tip you shared is about networking, getting in organizations where we can network. What was your advertising budget like? Did you do anything where you did any type of advertising where you put your name out there?
Right.
So you can share that about us, maybe some pitfalls, maybe some areas where you wasted money and you wish you hadn't done that, just when you're learning it, when you first starting out.
Right. So sometimes you can fall into those pitfalls. Like I got this guy that calls me every so often. He always has some ridiculous joke he starts his conversation off with. It's like an icebreaker, and I end up buying 150 ridiculous pins that I really don't need. So I try to get rid of them as folks come in and say something like, I stole this pin from FTBT Transport and have our number and stuff like little gimmicks and stuff like that. But I've put banners out if I'm seeking drivers. Most of my costs associated with that, those yard signs that you may see around. I'm advertising for drivers through that. And of course, spending budget when it comes to, Craigslist or Indeeds, those different type of sites where I can advertise for additional drivers is the most my budget extends in terms of marketing.
You have a sales team, do you have anyone representing you going out to obviously business to business field?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, all right.
Actually,
that's fine.
Actually, so it's been times where I've taken my staff out. If we went really low on drivers, I'd take my staff out and we would get water bottles and we would stand near the port. We'd hand the drivers a cold water bottle with a flyer for our business. I mean, we would advertise like that. So basically standing on the street corner, waving down drivers, running up to trucks and handing them a brochure and a cold water, a cold Gatorade or something of that nature. We went to those extreme measures and we just do what we had to do to keep, our doors open. Luckily this year, I received a lot of funding through COVID relief funds and grants that I've been able to apply for and be successful with. As a matter of fact, I just applied for one yesterday through Chesapeake, the city of Chesapeake. And that funding has allowed us to sustain, through these turbulent times.
Well, George, this has been rich, quite rich. I want to recap what you shared with us. And of course, I took my notes. You said to pick our passion, which, we talked about, what we do is our passion will help us to hang in there, is what we would do for free. Do our research and to avoid creating a business that's already saturated. And if we're going to create a business that's already saturated in our area, find something unique. We need to have our niche. What makes us different? What do we specialize in that everyone else doesn't specialize in? How can you establish your own entity? Of course, do it on your own. You don't necessarily, for me, I'm going to trademark. I should have been done this. Trademark my name. I'm in the process of that, just about done. Get DUNS and SWAM certified. Do what you can on your own. Try to find a way to select a partner if you want one. Make sure you want a partner, and understand that there's a risk in that. Scale up slowly, take your time in building your business, learn the ropes first, find competent staff, preferably someone with experience. Run your business, or your business will run you. So that is rich. And I didn't know if you have any parting comments, but before I give you the floor for parting comments, I want to share with everyone that I am founder and CEO of Girlfriends Tea, and we have an upcoming conference this Saturday. It's called Crystal Clear for the Good of Society. And that theme means we need to be crystal clear about our purpose and our talents. Otherwise, we're no good for society. How can we help others unless we're clear in what we do? So if you're interested in attending our conference, it's going to be dynamic. We have over $2,100 in door prizes. So we're excited to be giving those away. One of them, namely, is Bruce Thompson donated a room stay at the Hilton and dinner for two. And I personally have 4 $50 gift certificates to Brothers. So shout out to Brothers, excellent restaurant. So at any rate, we want you to check us out on Eventbrite and join us if you see that that's a good fit for you, and we hope it is. And I also have my brand new tea line. I'm actually sipping on some of my tea now. So you can find out more about me at girlfriendstea.square.site as far as my products go. All right, George, I'll give you parting comments. And Blair, I want to thank you and Marcia, but especially you, Blair, for the opportunity to come before your people, because I know that you don't trust everyone with your platform, and I'm honored to have participated in this interview with George. George, what would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to thank you first, Sebrina. I think you're an excellent host. You made me feel very comfortable. And Blair, as always, you know, the love is there. We appreciate you so much for what you're doing with Black Brand and what you're doing for our community. I'm not, so you might have heard me do a lot of stuttering and stuff like that. You know, I'm not much to do a lot of interviews, but
you did a great job. Great job. Your personality. Sometimes people speak well, but your personality.
Well, thank you. Thank
great.
You.
So you did a great job, and you're good at what you do. So make no excuses, George. You know what you know. You're making money, so that's good enough.
And dear, thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you know some of the information that we shared today. You took great notes, by the way, Sebrina.
Oh. I'm a great student.
But you made me feel like my words really resonated, you know.
I think they did. Wouldn't you agree? Oh, Blair's drinking my tea. She said she's drinking Spearmint Energy. Shameless plug. Thank you, Blair.
That's right.
I love Spearmint. Blair, how'd you get that? Oh, that's Marcia. Okay, I got to get Blair something now. I don't misspoke. That's Marcia. Blair, I'll get you a bag. But George, yes. And I want to connect with you. I know you're on LinkedIn. We have some things in common being in the same field. So I just want to connect with you regarding some of the things that you mentioned. And everyone else, I encourage you to do the same. So remind us again how we can connect with you.
Right, sure. So LinkedIn is a great platform. You can find me, George Berry. You can also find our Facebook page for our trucking. You can find Pioneer Transport, VA, or For Truckers, By Truckers. You can also find us on the gram, Pioneer Transport VA. You can add us there. So yeah, and come to any Black Brand meetings we may have face-to-face in the future. You can.
That's right. We're going to have them in the future. Blair, I'm honored to be a member of Black Brand. Everyone have a beautiful rest of the day, and please support Coffee Connect. Share it, because this is an excellent platform for all of us to learn something, because we can learn something from each individual. All right. Thank you, George, again. Blessings to everyone. Y'all have a good evening.
Have a great, blessed
day.
Everybody. Yeah, all that good stuff. Enjoy that sunshine.
That's right.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes. We do tax resolution. We lend private money and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.